Hi everyone, it's Lauren Langston. So today my presentation is over adjectives, and there's so much more to adjectives than I originally thought. I already knew that adjectives are the words that describe us, that describe who we are and how we do things, and they're really necessary to language in order to be able to fully comprehend and to be able to fully communicate our ideas and what they mean. And so I've actually done lessons over adjectives before, and the ability to describe, and a lot of my students, when I asked them why is it important, they basically said the adjectives are kind of the heart of language. They give us the ability to fully communicate what we want to say. And without them, we really only have the base of language. We can only communicate at a base level. We can't really give the heart of what we're trying to say. We can't convey it in a meaningful way without adjectives. So the books that I used, the sources that I went to, included the grammar book, just getting those basics about the knowledge and just learning more about adjectives, and it was really essential to me just being able to figure out more stuff, and it was so interesting. And then Basic Grammar Links by Linda Butler, and this was good. It gives some good activities, but it's very simplistic in nature, and it didn't cover a lot of the things that I felt ESL learners are going to struggle with. And so it wasn't completely relevant, but we'll talk about that more in a second. And then I also looked in Grammar and Beyond by Blas, Iannuzzi, Savage, and Repin. And again, not completely relevant, kind of on a totally different level. It's not focusing so much on adjectives themselves, but rather how adjectives help out with clauses and verbs and that sort of thing, which is necessary to understand. And so I think that it has some good activities in there, because I think that you can do a lot of integrated learning with adjectives. But once again, we'll get to that in a second. So the article that I chose after I looked through the suggested reading, I wasn't able to find any of those sources, so I went online and I put in a couple of their names and a couple of the titles, and I was able to find a scholarly article by Renee Dervin from the University of Duisburg, Germany. Can I get that out? And the article is called "The Cognitive Motivation for Adjective Sequences and Attribution." And basically it talks about exactly what the grammar book is talking about, with just some more details on different areas. So the first three things that I wanted to address were the three things that I really felt were going to be difficult for ESL students. Number one is placement. So with adjectives, some occur only before a noun, and others occur after a copular verb, such as be. And this gets very confusing for ESL learners. They don't always understand where the placement is actually supposed to be. And so I think it's important as ESL teachers to find activities that give them repetition and give them a constancy, so that they understand the placement, the correct placement for adjectives. And then the second thing that I want to address is that adjectives can occupy more than one position, but depending on their placement, they may have different meanings. So this kind of goes hand in hand along with the first issue. Once they understand the placement, then you can move on to that second issue and really address, okay, when this is in a different place, it can mean something completely different. And so having activities that deal with that. And then also the third issue, when more than one adjective is used, they have to be put into a particular sequence. They have to go in a certain order, or it doesn't make sense. And so I'll be giving some examples of that in a moment. So going into detail now on semantic considerations, the basic positions for an adjective are called attributive and predicative. It's hard to say. Try to say that 3 times fast. And so attributive and predicative. And these are basically the two essential positions. Now, attributive is the more common position. That's what you're going to see most of the time. But predicative does show up as well. And this really affects the three issues that I talked about. And so the more that we know about those as teachers, the better we're able to help our students understand and to be able to come up with activities over placement and give them those tools so that they can understand. So first of all, attributive, it's the most common, and it uses reference adjectives. And these are the things that we see most of the time, I feel like. So reference adjectives are considered more permanent. So an example of this would be, take the two sentences, that responsible person. When I say that responsible person, the adjective is responsible. It's describing the person, and it's giving an unquestioned characteristic. That person is responsible. That's how they're built. While the second sentence, that person is responsible, by having the copulative verb is in front of responsible, it makes it more temporary. It says that this person is responsible in this moment, not necessarily as a complete characteristic, if that makes sense. Going back with the reference adjectives, got it? So I'm just going to list off a couple of the reference adjectives. You have the reference as the referencing the head noun, so the main noun in the sentence, and the adjective references it. So if I were to say, you were the very man I was looking for, my adjective is very, and it's referencing my head noun, which is man. So another one is referencing importance or rank. So if I was talking about a person, I said their chief faults are da-da-da-da-da, the adjective would be chief, and it's referencing the person's faults. And it's basically, chief gives their faults importance, and it gives it a rank, and it gives it a level. So another reference adjective is referencing the head noun by law or custom. And this one is actually really easy. I think that once we give our ESL students the vocabulary that they need to understand that goes along with law and with custom, they'll understand this one really quickly. But I could say the lawful heir of the estate, and the adjective is lawful, and it's referencing the noun heir. Identifying the reference of the noun, so that would be, if I said he's a medical doctor, that's identifying the reference. He's not just a doctor, he's a medical doctor, and so it's just giving the noun identity. Another is quality or qualifying time reference. So if I said he's the future king, I'm qualifying the time of the noun. Does that make sense? So it's future. So he's the future king. Future is the adjective. It's identifying the time in which he will be the king. Qualifying a geographical reference. He's a southern gentleman. It's identifying where he's from geographically. He's from the south, so southern is the adjective. It's referencing the man. Emphasizing the head noun, which is she's a mere child. The adjective is mere, and it emphasizes the head noun. She's not just a child, she's a mere child. It gives it intensity, and it emphasizes upon the noun. And then the last one, showing uniqueness of the head noun, the sole survivor. Words such as soul or adjectives such as soul give the noun uniqueness, and so it sets apart the noun survivor and describes it more thoroughly. So those are attributive adjectives. Adjectives. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with that word. Attributive adjectives. And so those are the ones that we see most often. And then on to the predicative adjectives. The predicative adjectives have three categories. You have adjectives with an A prefix. So the boy is asleep. Simple enough. It's very common. It's easy to spot. And so I think these are much easier for our ESL students to grasp. You have health adjectives. She felt faint. She felt ill. She felt well. The adjective is how she feels. And then adjectives followed by prepositional phrases or infinitives. So he's bound for China. The prepositional phrase is for China. The adjective is bound. So another thing, so those are the basics of adjectives, and I could go on all day long about the various parts of adjectives that are so crucial to understand to even begin to address our students. But just having that basic knowledge is a big deal. And so something else that I feel would be really difficult is distinguishing adjectival participles from verbal participles. So if you have an ing adjective, the magician is amazing, versus an ing verb, the magician is amazing us, that can become really, really confusing for an ESL student very quickly, just because it goes back to the first issues that I dealt with, which are the placement and how it can change the entire meaning of the adjective. It can change it from being an adjective to becoming a verb. And so that's so important for us as teachers to pay attention to and to see how our students are using those. So ways to distinguish this and to incorporate this into an activity would be to use intensifiers like very, because intensifiers can only be used in front of adjectival participles. So they can only be used in front of the adjective. They can't be used in front of the verb. And so it's that kind of consistency that's really going to help our students, and we can just do repetition and drill, and that will really get the idea across to them what is expected and what is needed. So I was thinking of activities that could be done with this, and there are so many. And when I was looking in these books, they give some really great fill-in-the-blank type things. But again, this one's not really relevant at all. It's talking about clauses after nouns and adjectives. So this could go into the prepositional phrases or infinitives. You could do something similar to this if you were trying to address that and that part of adjectives and predicative adjectives. So doing group work where you complete answers to the questions and they have to use so many adjectives, and that's kind of described here. And so I don't know how well you can see that, but yeah, so that one's not bad, but I wanted something better, so I also looked in the grammar links. And this one is very simplistic. While Grammar and Beyond is more tailored towards adults, Grammar Links is really tailored towards elementary age children and a much lower proficiency level. And so this one actually talks about possessive adjectives, and you could take this back into attributive adjectives and just looking at giving those references, and then you kind of kill two birds with one stone by looking at the possessive as well. But I do think that it's good in how it gives a very kinesthetic, very visual activity, such as touch something near you, ask, "What's this?" and student will answer with words from boxes or words from word banks that you've given them, and it's basically saying that it is adjective, my, your, his, her, notebook, desk, watch, whatever. So you can kind of see how that works. Very simplistic, not hard at all, and I do think that this can be adapted really easily into something that would be more complex. It would be hard to get it to an adult level, I feel, but not impossible. And so just little things like that would be okay. And then I was looking in the teaching suggestions at the back of the grammar book, and it had some good suggestions. And the one that I really marked was the Mark Twain, Life on the Mississippi. It's on page 397. And basically it gives an excerpt from a Mark Twain writing, and then it asks students to identify the adjectives and to discuss their position. And I thought that as a teacher, you can do something like acting out the different parts of the story and identifying those adjectives, and then doing an activity such as quiz, quiz, trade, where you have sentences on slips of paper. On one side of the paper you have the sentence and a blank, and you have to figure out, where does the adjective go? Is this an adjective or is this a verb? Or you could do, is this a predicative adjective, or is this an attributive adjective? And really delve into that and get students to recognize that, because the more they recognize the difference between those two, the more they're going to be able to place the adjectives correctly and to deal with them correctly. So doing something like this Mark Twain, reading the passage together, acting it out, role-playing, taking an activity such as quiz, quiz, trade, where they quiz each other, trade the slips of paper, and then find a new partner. Those are so helpful, and it's really good because it models it first, and then it has the students take it to a whole new level. It's cooperative learning, it's individual learning, it's independent, and I think that it's extremely, extremely helpful. I also really liked the activity from Furston and Killian, which recommend a role play in which one person plays the role of a traveler at an airport or a train station or wherever, and who has lost his or her luggage, and another student plays the role of an agent in the lost and found office, and the agent has to ask specific questions about the lost luggage and its contents, and the traveler has to be able to answer the question in great detail. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying at the very beginning of my presentation, just addressing that the more detail they have, the better that they'll understand adjectives. The more they understand the importance of having detail and being able to describe things, the more they'll be able to place adjectives. And so giving them those real world situations, real tasks, things that they really will come up against are excellent ways to teach this. So I know that I've gone a little bit long here, but I hope that it's been educational and that you've learned a little bit from it. And I also hope that you find the activities helpful. They're simple and they can be adapted for anyone, and they're just good fun. So anyways, I look forward to seeing your comments, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks.